And I think that if more people approached business and more people approach life in general with the essence of I'm going to invest in people before I'm going to invest in things,
Mm.
then we would have probably the world would be a much better place. It really would.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, I have with me Jason C., who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Worthwhile, where he leads efforts to build and nurture relationships with referral partners and enterprise clients. With close to 20 years of experience in the technology space, Jason has driven customer acquisition and strategic growth through his expertise in partnership development and product innovation, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Jason, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Thank you, David.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. I'm excited to get into some of the work that you're up to right now. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Jason, let's start with a quick little background on who you are, where you came from, and how you landed in your role with Worthwhile.
Yeah. Long story short, wow, I'll be 50 this year, so I've been in the workforce for a long time. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I don't look like it. I'm so young
No,
and
you don't
bright,
look a day over
right?
30.
Yeah, thank you. I
What's your
appreciate that.
secret, Jason?
Yeah, it's oil of Olay, I think. It was back, the day.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, long story short, I'm from actually from just north of Detroit, a little town called Pontiac, Michigan, is where I was born. And I was transplanted down here to go to college. Spent most of my college years in Greenville, South Carolina. So, and then I loved it down here. So it's kind of the promised land. And if you can imagine winters in Detroit versus year round in Greenville, South Carolina. Other than Helene coming through, it's been great for the past 32 years down here. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being here. During that time, I went to grad school a couple times. Ended up teaching high school, coaching football for about 7 years, and then started a school in 2003, private school here in Anderson, South Carolina, um, and ran that school for about 5 years as principal, and then shifted to educational technology. So I was in started technical training, and then went into product management, and then became the director of product for a company out of Chicago for 12 years. And then for the last 5 years or so, I've been with for Worthwhile. Started during COVID years, so April of 2020. I think I was here a week, and then everybody went remote. And then we've just been kind of hybrid and having a hybrid situation, which then I led and started the business development department here, hired a team of account executives and strategic account managers, and then we've just been growing the business. So we've over the last let's see, almost 5 years since we've been there, we've had about average about 27% growth year over year. Um, 2024 has been a crazy year, so we won't highlight the awesomeness of 2024 and the markets and everybody holding their money, but it's been certainly a challenging year, but we are making the best of it and coming out of it pretty well. So
Yeah, it's been quite a challenge kind of navigating this uncertainty that we have all found ourselves in with the political situation and wars and all the other things that are kind of
yeah.
happening. And it's like, does what we're doing matter still, or should we prepare for the apocalypse?
there, there's the existential question, right? Is
Yeah.
what am I doing right now that matters when Helene comes through and we don't have water and electricity and all of that. We're kind of like, all right, you start to reevaluate what is the valuable thing. Do I want to just be in a vault somewhere on 11 acres, or do I want to continue to drill into this? And so, um, I think overall it's just with an election year, people are hopeful but also fearful.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime that um, you have a not just a business environment or a market, but society as a whole is experiencing FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and dread.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a little bit more difficult to convince them that, hey, you should reduce your liquidity and invest in some technology, or invest into AI. What do you want AI to do? Or maybe it automates some things in your business, But it's a big investment. And that doesn't have to be, but it is.
Hmm.
And when you have some uncertainty or some fear, you tend to start clenching your fists and holding those dollars a lot more tightly.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
if nothing else, Jason, you've already established that you have some very a very unique perspective, and I think that that's really
Yeah.
important here to keep in mind. Like, yeah, the work that we're
Yep.
doing should be important, it can be important, but also we need to be aware of, all the other things that are going on. And so
Yep.
I wonder how that shapes your approach to growing a business when it comes to
Yeah.
the work that you've done with Worthwhile. You mentioned we're sitting over 25% year over year in continuous growth, and that's through a pandemic, that's through a recovery of a, well, we'll call it, we're still in the midst of a recession, and through
Right.
all of this other stuff. And
Mhm.
so I think it's right in the name, strategic partnerships as your role. What does that
Mhm.
mean for you, and how have you leveraged that to help grow Worthwhile through all of these really challenging times?
There's one thing I try to, I guess, model and maybe just I want people to walk away feeling like they've been seen and heard,
Mm,
and they're a person. Business can get very stale and get very robotic. Um, I love outreaching and doing some things on LinkedIn and electronic relationships are one thing, but as soon as I talk to you, I want to get to know you.
mm,
I don't want to, I can care less about really where people have been and what they've done and all their accolades or how many times they've exited a business or and sold their business. That's all fine and good, and I will respect you for that. But, if you're not a good person, then I'm not going to spend my time with you, right? And part of being a strategic partner for most of, for the most part in my role, I focus in on the person because I do care about what they're doing. How
mhm,
are they doing? But it's more of a give relationship than a get relationship.
right.
So I like to, with my strategic partnerships, I want to make sure that they understand, hey, I'm probably going to outgive you, but I challenge you to outgive me. I mean, if you want to give me more business than I give you, that's great. But right now, it's really a 2-to-1 ratio of give versus get. And I'm okay with that. And even in the structure, you can see in some of the agreements that I have with referral partners, is we have a referral partner. Hey, we're going to give you 5% of whatever they spend with us that you referred, that person to me. I'm going to give you 5%. Now, if you give me something, you're guaranteed that 5%. If I give you something, I'm not going to come after you for your 5%. Like if you want to give me 5%, that's great. It's a respect kind of thing. And we develop these relationships really with this give and take. And I think what it does is it cultivates a challenge
Mm,
between partners to say, hey, Jason just gave me this, really great deal and we did some good business with him. Yeah, I gotta find something for my guy. I gotta find something for my dude, right? And so let me find it. And that's typically what happens. And sometimes there's occasions where I get more from a partner than they give me. And then that puts me on, notice to say, hey, I gotta find something, for them. So from a strategic partnerships, from a business standpoint, I love to give more than I get. But I also want to know the person, and I try to create people of the same values and the same, work ethic. Um, but I know very quickly if I establish a good, partnership where I feel is a good partnership, but then I get ghosted, that it's probably a one-way street, right? So
right.
I'll continue to kind of plow through. I'll continue to give, check in, see how you're doing. And sometimes even my partners, they're kind of a little bit set back because I really am like, hey, how are you doing? Let's okay, that's great. Business is great. Thanks for the update. But how are you doing? Like, how's your inward soul doing? Are you fighting this battle? Because it's tough. Like the world, it's an unforgiving world. It's an unforgiving market. And sometimes we just got to lift each other up and take the moment to be intentional about it.
As you were talking, there was a couple of things there that I just absolutely love about it. The first thing is the whole human element of this, and to
Yeah.
your point, it's like, yeah, we have all of these things that are external of self, and we can use those as metrics, like, oh, I just got a nice car, or, I
Sure.
just bought a house with a pool or whatever it is, but those are all externals, right? And the
Huh?
thing that I saw you point out was like that, how are you as a human being doing, and what can I do
Right.
to support you? And like
Right.
the there was this, I don't know if anybody, this is gonna be a super obscure reference, but there's this TV show that I used to watch. I watch it all the time, but it's called The Office. And about
Yeah.
halfway through the seasons, there are two characters on The Office, Dwight and Andy, who get in this battle of outdoing each other's generosity. And of course, being that it's a television show, it
Yeah.
results in some crazy turmoil. But
Right.
to that end of like, hey, listen, if you're gonna do something nice to me, I'm gonna do something nice to you. And I'm gonna wrap this up on this one,
Right.
uh, Jason. My We put water bottles in our fridge, and I have a
Yep.
rule: if my son wants to have a water, he has to put two back in. And
Ah.
so
Yeah.
it creates this natural incentive to like, yeah, I definitely want a nice, fresh, cold water, but I want to make sure that I take care of the person that's going to come after me to get a water. And
Ye-
so, you know how it is. Sometimes we forget to put
Yeah.
stuff in there, and the supply inevitably dwindles. But if we all
Yeah.
have that mentality of like, let me put some value into it while I'm still taking out of it, I think that creates a little bit more sustainability. And I think maybe that's what
Yeah.
you're pointing at when you're talking
Yeah.
about creating these strategic partnerships. Am I right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the concept of multiplication through generosity, and I think the more, I have never met somebody in my lifetime that has been just a intentional, generous giver that couldn't tell me they've gotten more than they've given. you know. Now you can talk about relationships. You can talk about, oh well, my husband doesn't do this, or my wife doesn't do this, my girlfriend doesn't do this, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm really talking about true generosity, where you go into a relationship, not expecting anything back. It's really almost a gratitude heart to say, sometimes you just, there's people in my life that I'm just fortunate that they're in my life and that they want to spend, time with this knucklehead, and they want to be around and do life together. Um, but it's, I've never met anybody that hasn't, just given. And I know business owners that have given probably detrimental to their business, right? They could have a lot more in their business, right? But it's not about the cars. It's not about the houses. It's really about building business. And some of these, exiters, I give them a hard time. Some, hey, I've exited 7 companies. Well, my next question is always, well, what are you doing with that? What are you doing? It's like, what are you doing after you retire? Oh, I just sold out. I got my top dollar. I'm in retirement, but I never prepared for, what I was going to do, right? I never prepared for retirement, what was going to do next. And I
Mm,
know some founders that they've just built their business for the sole purpose of giving, giving back after, or mentoring other young founders. And, it's been a core part of what we've done at Worthwhile through our venture studio is just trying to invest in people and these founders that they would be lost otherwise.
mm.
Sure, where we help them and it's a for cost service. But I would say that we probably give double an effort than what we actually take in monetary charges. So it's all about that. It's pretty simple.
Well, I think one of the things too is we got to stop keeping score. And this is
Yeah,
something that I found so interesting. I think it was
yeah,
Gary Vaynerchuk went on a rant about how being generous, you can't be taken advantage of. If you are
right,
genuinely being generous, you get to decide how much you give, when you give it, and when you are done giving. And if you're
right.
doing it while measuring what somebody else is giving back to you, then that's not generosity, that's a transaction.
Right, right, right. There's a limit. You mentioned there's, you get to decide, how many times or when the giving stops. And I think that we live in a culture where, if we don't round up, for the troops, or we don't round up for glaucoma, or we don't give to the Heart Association. I have yeah, for a time, a period of my life, I became a widower. My wife actually passed away, brain aneurysm, right? 44 years old,
Oh
just
my
out
goodness.
of the blue.
Sorry to hear
And
that.
given to these aneurysm societies, and then I got to where, hey, they're always calling me, and then the Heart and Lung Association's calling me, and then the Red Cross is calling me, and then donors are calling, totally, and which is fantastic. But I had to learn. You have to learn to to say, hey, not this time, or hey, I've allocated all my giving to for the year, as they come around. But I'm also a big giver, and if I could, if I got to the point where I could give 50% of mine away, it'd be great. 75% away. It's almost a matter of asking the question, what can I keep versus how
Mm.
much should I give, and how much do I need, and that's always been something that constantly goes through my mind.
Scott, I think if Scott Galloway just went on this massive tour talking about almost the same message in
Yeah,
that, like,
yeah,
what's your number? Set your number, go out there
yeah,
and earn that number. And once you get that number, go live your life, spend your money, blow it on stupid things, be irresponsible with it. But then
yeah,
anything above and beyond that, like, what are you doing with it?
yeah,
Why
yeah,
not put it
right.
to work somewhere else, not to maybe earn you money as much as it is to have an impact somewhere. And
Yeah,
so there's this kind of call to arms for anybody that's in that top 1% of 1% who is making
yeah,
way more than they need to be like, hey, listen, can we invest in
yeah,
something else like cheaper education or better
yeah,
services for our people? And so I
yeah.
like that. I like that that's where your head's at. So okay, um, let's bring it down to earth. What's the like tangible metrics now that you're measuring that you can say like, hey, okay, because giving and being generous is a part of our matrix, uh, this is what we yield as a result of that. And I mean, outside of the generic like 27% year over year growth, like what else is there that is supporting your decision to stay down that path?
Yeah, we have a good mission here, and a vision, and some of our goals are around having multiple business units. We have 3 business units right now. We've grown that from one single business unit, um, and but we do have a mission to be a disruptor to and to create a system of generational wealth, right? Where there's jobs that I'm just gonna be honest with you. There's moments where you have to cut staff because you're just over your skis, right? Yeah,
Mm,
income's not coming in. Sometimes you got to make cuts. We've seen big companies this year, Cisco and Google, and all these make huge, like thousands and thousands of cuts. Well, that's 1,000 plus 17,000, 5,000 individual souls that are affected,
hmm
and families that are affected by a reduction in salary, or just being unemployed. So what we really hold true is, how do we run the business in a way that we don't have that impact upon our employees. We can create a business where, you know one day, maybe my children decide that, hey, they want to go into business development, or they want to, go into strategic partnerships, and want to do what dad does. I don't see that probably happening, but but since my son's a mechanic and my daughter's in a nursing school, almost a senior in nursing school, and I have one that's still in high school. But you never know. Hey, the one in high school still might want to go into the business world, and do something like that. But it's not about. I think that we all, in our 20s, in our early 20s especially, we're really trying to make it. We're really trying to survive, and then we're really trying to create our own wealth.
mm,
And as we get older, we start thinking not so intrinsically, but externally, and say, all right, well, how do we create, the growth that we have? How does that help our employees and their families create a system of wealth, um, not just by our own accord, but because we're collectively doing it together, right? And so, the measurements, our measurements, um, from a business standpoint, are like everybody else's. But at the end of the year, if we look back and we say, all right, well, we had to let 10 people go, and we affected 10 families, and they didn't, they didn't bounce back, or they didn't, find another work. We track our former employees on LinkedIn, and we're like, yeah, you go, boy. You just got to, they had one just today that just like, hey, I just started a new job. We're like, yes, absolutely. Even if they leave us, we're still in the same way. I think that once you pass through our doors, you just kind of become a part of it. And as strategic partnerships, I've looked for several people for positions and have called people and said, hey, if you have this open position, I got a guy or I got a girl that you need to talk to. So that's part of those conversations. It's not just about business. It's about how do we make people whole, and how do we create a system of generational wealth where people you know, can survive and provide for their families, and then and be a little bit different. We don't always
Mm.
have to beat our parents, even though that was probably my whole goal. is to beat my, it's like, how much, can I do better than my parents, or can I give my kids the better child than I had. I had such a great childhood. It was tough to do that.
Mm.
And so it's not so that at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's really about how do we create an environment, how do we create a culture at Worthwhile that is about each other, and about what we can do for others, rather than just what we can put back in our own pockets.
So giving people a purpose, measuring how that purpose is being fulfilled, staying
Yeah.
human, all of these sound like uh, almost a utopian business. As you were speaking, you reminded me of, I think it was Dan Price who did that whole thing where he cut his salary for the year and paid everyone
Oh yeah.
70 grand a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it turned out to be an incredible success. The story
Yeah.
goes on from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like really nurturing that culture and making sure that the people that are in your atmosphere are being taken care of. I think that's
Yeah.
really powerful. So then what does the whole process of strategic partnerships look like? Is this something where you are um, consistently and intentionally putting yourself out there to have conversations with the right people? Are you doing a lot of outbound outreach, or are you kind of just popular enough that you have enough people coming to you with opportunities that you get to field now?
Yeah, it's a weird thing though. The older you get, the more popular I get, I guess. Or maybe I've just been on the earth so long that I just know more people. Yeah, I think it's more or less it boils down to being intentional, and then being consistent.
Mm,
You know, everybody's had the proverbial, hey, let's get in touch, or hey, let's have coffee soon.
right.
I probably am way over caffeinated. I've probably had hundreds and hundreds of cups of coffee because I'm intentionally booking, a meeting at Methodical Coffee, or a meeting at, Spill Beans or Starbucks, or it's always around, anything that's ever been good in any conversation's been around food or drink, right? It's that's like in the history of, they've plotted wars. I'm sure Napoleon in his conquest, which he was eating a lot and drinking a lot, right? Probably drinking a lot more than he was eating, because he was nuts. But still, the concept is everything good that happens around breaking bread, or just spending some time and taking a big deep breath, right? And to do that, you have to create an environment for that. Well, to create an environment for that, you have to sometimes get people out of their desks, off of their laptops, out into the wild. And I call it seeing and being seen. And so sometimes just sitting in a central location is the biggest strategy for strategic partnerships, because not only are you seeing people, but you're also being seen. And
Mm,
then inevitably, a half a dozen times a month, I get somebody that says, hey, I see you here a lot. What do you do? And so then we strike up a conversation. It could be a small business organization. It could be a large business organization. It could be somebody that's looking for a development team, and they just stumbled up on me, right? And it said, oh, I didn't know you guys did that. Or, oh, I didn't know you guys were doing, helping founders, start their businesses and grow their software, or helping people modernize or scale their software. Didn't know you guys did that. And I'm like, surprise. Sometimes they don't even know what I do because we're talking so much about, general things. So I always have to say, well, just so you know, Worthwhile, we kind of do this. We have 3 different business units: Venture Studio, Next Generation Software, and Essential Operations. And I give them this spiel in about 30 seconds. And I'm like, right, so what's up with you lately? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, what are you struggling with? Sometimes sometimes it's just, what can I pray for you for? Is there something I can pray for you about? And everybody has something that you can pray for them about. Um, and or you can sit in silence sometimes and just listen.
Mm.
So it's just about that human connection, and that's why I love the position of strategic partnerships. I love being in it, because it's much like business development and sales. It's just about relationships. The most successful salespeople are not pushing product for you. They're literally just established relationships and finding ways that they can help others. And it just so happens that sometimes that costs money, and you
Well,
sell
yeah. But but
them.
but also it bears the fruit of the return on an investment, a very
Yeah,
intentional investment. And this is one thing,
right.
to your point, wars are started around a table, but they're also ended around a table when you break bread with your
Correct.
enemies. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
there's a
absolutely.
lot of value to be had there. But
Hmm.
when it comes to, and here's the thing, right? There's all of these training programs and you know sales courses and coaching
Yeah,
and the like that
yeah,
revolve around the systemization of relationship building.
yeah,
So I'm always curious because I'm very much a
yeah.
systems guy. I really truly believe that idea of you do not rise to your goals or to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Hmm.
I think it's an incredibly powerful way to see how valuable it is to create things like systems in your
Sure.
life, but also humans in their very nature are chaotic and messy and
Yeah,
uh, all over the place, and so it makes the systemization of that relationship building really incredibly difficult and complex and hard. So,
yeah.
Jason, what do you do differently that you don't see anybody else doing? Maybe is there like a top three tips or things or ideas or concepts that you could share with others to help elevate their efforts to be more genuine and
Yeah.
less robotic in that?
Yeah, I think number one, it's value your time. I don't think you should sacrifice, your time with just anybody. And I know that everybody's looking to have a conversation with somebody that will buy from them or somebody that will do business with them. Um, but you really have to protect your time because your time is valuable. I think when you have that attitude that your time is valuable, then the meetings that you actually book and the ones that you actually hold become extremely important, not for just you, but for also the other person on the other end. And then two, it's nobody cares about your sales pitch unless they're trying to invest in your company. Nobody cares about the sales pitch. Just be real, just be yourself. Be there's a book, it's Getting Naked, right? Getting Naked, just being super transparent. And it's the concept of being super transparent with your clients. And if you're super transparent with people, number one, they know you're not manipulating them, gaslighting you. You're not gaslighting them. You're not telling something, that you're never going to fulfill. Oh yeah, we could totally do that, we can build that for you in a year. And they know you can't do that. Um so I think just being very intentional um with the care and the relationship that you're forming, to think of it not as a transaction that will go away in 6 months, but can you make a lifelong friend, right?
Mm.
um you may not go on vacation with them or have Thanksgiving dinner with them, but if I see Mike over here across away, I like Mike, and I'm going to go toward Mike, and Mike's going to go toward me, and it could be 100 people in between it, right? But we're gonna find each other at some point in that event, right? Because we like each other, we've had great conversation, we've invested in each other, we've invested in that. So that's probably the second thing is just not valuing your time, but the second, really investing, being intentional about investment in those relationships, and the third is always keep in mind at the end of our lives, when we're sitting on our deathbed or we die, we don't get to take anything with us. We don't. We get to take nothing, right? And I grew up with this premise of you can't take anything with you, right? So spend it all, right? Maybe that's the thing. But you can't take anything with you, except one thing, and that you can take people. You can take people with you, right? Whether you believe in the afterlife or not, you can take people with you. I am a Christian. I am a born again Christian, and that's just been the essence of my belief is I can't take things with me, but if I can share Jesus with somebody or I can tell somebody um, that hey, there's an afterlife and that you can be a part of it, that's the only thing I can ever take with me. So it's super important in my life, and I think that if more people approached business and more people approach life in general with the essence of I'm going to invest in people before I'm going to invest in things,
Hmm.
then we would have probably the world would be a much better place. It really would. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you there, Jason. This has been really valuable. There's so much here that I'm very grateful that you've shared with me. As we
yeah,
come to an end with our time together here, I wonder if we could look forward a little bit at
yeah.
some of your bigger goals. What are you aiming at? What are you hoping to achieve, and what's in store for the next year for you and for Worthwhile?
Yeah, so I think a couple things on the personal level. I we are looking to build a house on this 11 acres in Pendleton, South Carolina, and that's super exciting. But the biggest excitement about that is I will be starting my apiary, C's Bees, which is you can learn a lot from bees, by the way. So anybody that's listening to this, if you want to learn about yourself, study a bee, or you want to learn about your family, study a bee. There's conflict. Sometimes they eat each other. I don't know. Don't do that. But that, you can learn a lot about bees and the care and and then just the existence of it. I think somebody had said back in the day the day that the bees disappear, humans will be next, right? Because we do need the pollination. It's good for our environment. It's good for allergies. It's good for everything. Anyway, so aside from the bee business, my wife and I have three dogs. We're just ready to kind of set our, I call it our death home, building our death home. This is where we're going to die. But super excited about that. And then from a worthwhile standpoint, we are growing. We are growing our ecosystem, which is an exciting thing because if you look at worthwhile from standpoint of being a custom software. Oh, we've been around 30 years. We were actually started out doing some .com and some websites and doing all that business. We transitioned to that a few years ago, just in the custom software realm. We've been doing that for big companies, medium-sized companies, small companies. And then last year we split our business units, spun up our venture studio. So we have our Worthwhile Venture Studio, and we can literally now service everybody from an idea. I have an idea of a business. We can help them incubate that. We can help them ideate on it, and then activate it with actually building their MVP of their product to our next generation's software unit that modernizes, rejuvenates, and scales software, and then our essential operations. That's basically, I call it an essential operations hug. We're like, hey, we're there for you, buddy. It's never gonna go down. We got you. We're the people that you call if you have any problems with your software or you need to, start, to keep innovating on it. So when you look at the ecosystem of Worthwhile, it's, hey, I got an idea, man. We help you make that idea a reality, and then we help you grow your business, and then we continue to modernize, scale, incorporate AI for what you want it to do. It's not just AI. We just throw that term out. It's like, what do you really want it to do? Well, I want a virtual assistant. Cool. All right, we'll help you with that. Or I want it to comb through thousands and thousands of resumes. All right, cool. We can help you do that. So it's building this ecosystem from the time that you have an idea to the time that you want to exit that business. We're there from soup to nuts. So that's our the biggest thing that we continue to do and continue to look forward to is that growing ecosystem, and through strategic partnerships that happens through just doing good business, doing what you say you'll do. Man, that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's really exciting. A lot of things on the horizon.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this all turns out. And one of the really cool things that I really love is that, yeah, we start out as this kind of digital solutions uh, as an idea, and it just evolves into this entire ecosystem of things that grow business more
Oh yeah.
intentionally. And I absolutely love that as a part of what you guys are doing. Um, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, Jason, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, best way to do that is just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm an avid LinkedIn guy, or you can hit me up at jsee@worthwhile.com. That's the easiest way as well. Or shoot at if you email me, I promise I'll email you back, and then my cell number is going to be in there, so you always have contact with me anytime you need to. So, but yeah, I love to help. I love to help young. I've sat with young entrepreneurs. I've sat with just college students and said, hey, how do I get in the business of doing what you're doing? And just to be able to create a generation that doesn't have electronic relationships would be
Mm,
it's pretty awesome, right? It's pretty awesome. Um, you spend I think the average hours per week that a lot of the gamers are on games is like 100 hours, and then you have to challenge yourself of what could you do in 100 hours if you dedicated that to a business in a month, or a business in a week. It's like that's a lot of hours, right? So you can
yeah,
do a lot of.
that's
Yeah.
major perspective right there, man. There's
Yeah.
some I think it was Alex Hermosi was talking about this how oh yeah, if your excuse is I don't have time, but just pull up your digital well-being app in your phone in your settings and look at how much time you're spending on your phone
Right,
and
right.
imagine what you could do if you just took one of those daily hours away from that and dedicated it to something else, how far
Oh
along
yeah.
you would be.
Or
And
how much you could get if and I don't want, I know this is going to be cuss words, but what if you canceled your Netflix subscription and used all of that time to create a bee apiary? Maybe.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
You'd be
but yeah,
surprised at how little downtime you actually need when you're doing things that are fulfilling.
1000%. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you
absolutely
there,
love it.
Jason. This has been great. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time and your wisdom. We're going to make sure that anybody watching or listening will be able to find you in the show notes. We'll link to all the stuff you mentioned there.
Like,
And on that note, if you want to get in touch with me and my team for any of your AI or marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this incredible conversation, and I will see you in the next.